Welcome to the Death of a Dream podcast. I'm your host, Hanna Nuss. I'm not always great at announcing that, but I actually remembered today. Look at me go. Shoot. Okay, let's go ahead and ground ourselves in our greatness. This really is just the practice of reestablishing your center and recognizing and realizing that you're doing great things every day. And this is really important to shift that belief that you're not, and really built, right? When we adopt a greatness grounding practice, we aren't even allowed to think of ourselves as lower. Plus, we start practicing, especially if you're saying it out loud, but even if you're writing it, you start practicing owning your own greatness, which will benefit you when you go for that next job, when you apply for X, Y, or Z, when you present your business, when you, whatever it is you're going to do, greatness is going to be important, and you being able to own your accomplishments is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself in the excelling of you, period. So we do it every day. We're not going to stop because over time, you'll start to see how it shifts your thinking, the way that you think about yourself, and the way that you own your own accomplishments. We are not tossing them out to just anybody anymore. We did not do this as a team. Girl, you are running the show. Please, 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 please take it over. Please own it. Please make sure that when you are called on, you know how to speak to it, period. And that's what greatness grounding is about. Okay, so my great thing. Yesterday, you probably heard a little bit of a lower, darker side. And I want to come on here every day, and I want to be the happiest, most excited, boss person that exists, right? Like that's what a good podcast host would be. And true to this story, true to the existence of what this podcast is, it needs to be rooted in realness. And that's why I don't try to hide those things. Now, there definitely are things that are very personal that aren't ready to come here yet as far as growth goes. But for the most part, I bring it all here. And yesterday, and other days before yesterday even, it got low, right? Like, oh, I'm looking for a win. Come on. Can I just get one already? And I had to bounce around conversations with my husband, conversations with friends, conversations with acquaintances, right? Just to get my thoughts out there. Wrote a poem yesterday. Don't worry about it. It's on the blog. I don't think, okay, it qualifies as a poem. You know why it qualifies as a poem? I don't know. Whatever. Drew some of the things that I was seeing, some of the experiences that I felt around this negative energy coming back in, and it was a lot of processing. And for me, it's about that exchange of energy. And I had heard something this morning as I was trying to process this, and I'm trying to think through what that was. I don't know that the fullness of the lowness came out on the podcast, but definitely as soon as I transitioned out of this space, the podcast space, I could feel it just start to come at me. And, I drew, I did things, I worked on what that expression would look like. I had this idea of the explanation of the drawing, the expression of that negative energy, and about probably, I was talking to people, I was trying to express what I was feeling, and probably about a minute after I got the explanation of that photo out, or that drawing out, I felt like the whole weight was lifted. I did other things to combat the negative energy. All I'm going to say is shout out to my good friend, Karina in Canada, the craziest Canadian that you will ever know. Her and I go back and forth all of the time about the madness of this place, the madness of Canada. We are here for each other. But part of that negative energy shift lived with her. And then just this sudden realization that you don't belong here, right? Like, and that it's okay. We're still going to feel that. We're still going to have to figure out how to navigate this because the lows are not going away anytime soon, right? Especially when you're in a moment of growth, especially when you're going through some painful stuff. It's not just going to disappear, right? The ability, and I want you to start to pay attention to how quickly you're able to bounce back, right? And fully feel that. Because for me, it's like we can't just transition out. We can't be in that place anymore. Hanna, when I experience these lows, it's important that I express it. It's important that I have conversations around it, that I embrace and acknowledge that it's there. Because for me, as an Enneagram 7, for me, as just someone who is innately optimistic, these are extremely uncomfortable places to be in. Feeling low, feeling sad, embracing and acknowledging that it exists. And so I don't even know how to do it. I can't. I don't want to. It's uncomfortable, right? But for me, it's like we have to sit with it for as long as we need to, right? That could look like 4 days, that could look like 2 days, depending on what the hurt was, and depending on my ability to tap into and express the things that I need to express related to that negative energy. And so for me, it's just about how quickly are we able to bounce back? And I don't want you to set yourself up for failure and be like, oh, it's taking me 3 weeks. There are some things that hit so low, you can't process that fast enough. And for me yesterday, it was just like, you got this. Right? You know that you didn't fully express that feeling in the morning. Just drawing the picture wasn't enough. You have an explanation of what that is, and that is very closely tied to how you're relating to this. And as soon as I got those words out, and it's kind of funny because my favorite expression is spoken word. I don't know if any of you could have guessed. You're all surprised by that right now, right? So that's like my favorite expression. And we've been talking about working on expanding what that creation looks like, right? And not holding ourselves accountable to being good. So when I say that I wrote a poem, like, I don't envision myself being the next Edgar Allan Poe, right? Is he a poet? I don't know. Anyways, Shakespeare? Who writes poems these days? I don't know. I'm not hip to the poetry world, right? But really, I don't envision myself going there. It really is just about turning that negative energy into something beautiful, into something that could possibly connect with someone, into something that I just get it out so it's not living in here anymore, right? And so that looks like painting, drawing, and poetry, I guess. Like, that was never a vision that I had, but these were the words and this was how I wanted to express this. So that's over on the blog. But really, most importantly is, right, shifting that negative energy exchange. And the second that I got that out, it was like a whole weight was lifted. It was almost as if it never happened at all. And for me, it's like paying attention to those cues, because right away in the morning, I had this thought of what this was. And instead of fully expressing it, I was just like, I know, I hear you. I don't really have time to do that. And had I just taken that time, I wonder if I hadn't had to sit through a whole day of that pulse of discomfort and sadness. I don't know, right? But now that's a great lesson. We're paying close enough attention to the pulse of what this anxiety was, to the pulse of what this negative energy was, that we now have a better understanding of what it is and how to combat it next time, or at least attempt to, right? And that's not always going to be a quick fix. That's not always going to be the solution, but here we are. And, the greatness that came from that is just that, like, I can find ways through it quicker than I used to be able to, right? Where, like, the holding of that negative energy would just pent up And then I would just explode on someone because, spoken word is my medium of choice. And so I would explode in that way, right? Whether it was on this podcast, whether it was in a meeting with someone, whatever that looked like. But it really was because I wasn't finding ways to express and channel that energy somewhere. And so I've been practicing that. What does that look like? And I'm not like a practice tried and true wonderful person, but yesterday, that expression, the full expression of that, took the weight off almost immediately. So keep experimenting. Keep finding what that looks like for you. I would have never envisioned that writing a poem would be anything on the list. Or drawing or painting or any of that. But like your body, your mind will guide you to those places and tell you what to do next and what to try next. Our job is to silence ourselves long enough to tap into that. Okay, let's dive in. Greatness over. It's never over. You're so great. You're so amazing. It will never be over. Your greatness does not end. Your greatness is not dependent on an accomplishment. Your greatness is not dependent on your success, because success really doesn't exist. Your greatness is ever imminent. Okay. So I keep being served this same story, and it always has a little bit different twist to it. But the gist of this story is, and I think about this yesterday, and I think about this, just recently. And so this story started coming to me, and it keeps being reserved in different ways. And I love, can't even tell you enough how much I love organic presence. I follow very few people because I like to get to the part where things just serve to me naturally. Now, social media, nothing is natural. They're going to serve you things that really coincide with what you like and what you even stay on. Even if you push no heart bubbles on anything, it's basically watching how long you're looking at something and then developing an algorithm around you and the things that you like. Either way, I am so here for organic feeds. I almost can't even really live in non-organic feed land. Like, I love it. I live for it. I love things just coming to me naturally. So the same thing has revolved around me this week. And I think, hey, I love how things find you in order to teach you a lesson. And I haven't been ready to receive that lesson yet. Otherwise, it probably already would have been here, right? We would have already talked about it. And this morning I heard it, and I heard it for the first time, right? And hearing it for the first time really means you're probably ready to start applying whatever lesson is supposed to be taught to you. And I think so many times, right, I would hear portions of it, like, oh yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That's really cool. And I take little pieces each time. And I think that's really how you build the puzzle, right? You just start filling in the middle. And for me, the final puzzle piece, is that what it sounds like when you put a puzzle piece in? Oh yeah, that's the sound. Okay. Next form of expression. Voice sounds. Okay. Probably not. Who knows? Either way, we put in the last piece of the puzzle. And this is the story. This is what keeps being served. There are going to be moments where you feel like everything is going bad. You feel like you're working into these low, deep places, right? Anybody in that season? Trust? I don't know if I don't know. Yesterday I was questioning if we were ever going to get out of this season. Maybe this is just where life happens for me. Those conversations were had in my head yesterday, no question. Maybe this is just where we go. We stop the podcast. We just go back, undo it all. Um, that was yesterday. Trust. It got low after this moment. And so those times when you're low, when you're in those seasons of loss, and yesterday I said, like, I just want to frickin' win, right? And so this story keeps coming to me, and they're talking about how you're essentially like a slingshot, some of us, right? And you're pulling back and you're experiencing all those lows because you're going backwards, right? You're having to learn lessons as you're pulling back, and those look like old things that'll represent in different ways, even though you're in a very different place, right? We're testing as we're pulling back. Are you ready? Are you ready to be shot forward? Can you pass these lessons, right? And start paying attention to how closely related the lessons are that are coming to you, right? Because for me, it's like, oh, that's pretty closely tied. And my friend did a great job yesterday as she was trying to help me work through this. And trust, I had to call in the troops. It was a husband, it was a friend, it was an acquaintance. Like, everybody's coming to the table. Help Hanna figure this out. And my friend did a great job yesterday just being like, okay, so what did we learn, right? And that's so important. That's such a big key and takeaway. And that's why coaches and friends and people who are very close to you are very important to call you back, right? From, I don't know, the spiral that happens. And that's just it. There are things that I'm being tested on to pass. No question. They all have very similar themes, right? And for me, my word, credence, trust, the mental acceptance that this life is real, right? Hello? And right in that moment, as I commit to that, I'm tested with very similar things that I've been tested with before. And yesterday was this moment of like, are we rising above this? And are you about credence, or are you going to sink back to where you were before? This is a test. This is a part of the test. Do you want to pass, right? Because the second that you pass those tests, as you're winding back, and I know that it seems like you're going backwards, and I know that it seems like you're dropping low and that you're never going to pass this place, the second that you pass those tests, the beauty of a slingshot, right? You don't know how fast you're going to be propelled. You don't know. And honestly, sometimes we're being propelled so we hurry up and get over that thing. You know, for me, that was volleyball. I just wouldn't leave it alone. I had been tested. I had been told that it wasn't going to happen. And then, right, all of a sudden, I'm just slingshot into possibility and beauty. And it happened faster than I could have ever imagined. And the only thing that I committed to, right, the only thing that I committed to when I went into coaching was that I was planning to build a tradition. And tradition really isn't about success as much as it's about shifting beliefs. And we did that, right? The transmission of customs or beliefs from generation to generation, or the fact of being passed on in this way. We believed we were right. Period. And as such, we did great things, and we built a tradition of greatness. And while, right, I could have never imagined the rise that we had, the reason that I was slingshot forward, slung, right, is because God was like, hey, sis, I'm going to need you to get past this moment. Right? And I'm going to need you to have this experience so that you realize this, right? That you could get everything that you want, that you could have these dreams, but if the dreams aren't really aligned with something you want, they're never going to feel right. no matter how high up you go. And now I'm going to test you to see if you will leave and find out what it looks like after that. Right? And so when you're in that slingshot moment, when you're being pulled back, when you're being tested, and you're being tested with the same things you've been tested with before, you just haven't passed like that, right? I want you to think about what you're about to slingshot into, right? And yesterday, all of a sudden, I published the blog and I have this realization that it's all happening, right? And it's all happening exactly how it's supposed to. And what a beautiful thing. And what a beautiful reality to live in, right? And while it's not playing out the exact way that I envisioned, because all of us want to jump in, not be pulled back, just jump in and be slingshotted forward, but not have to take that backward progress. Right? But it's part of it. You have to go back in order to go forward. And I just want us all to start trusting the beauty of the backward movement, right? Because there are so many people that are just go forward, don't experience that lowness. You just have to stay high, stay above it, stay excited, stay motivated, keep working, keep moving, never stop moving. And I'm, from my experience, going to tell you backwards movement is some of the most important move you can make. I know. That was a tough one. Wow, Hanna, you're really going somewhere special as a motivational speaker. You're getting me real pumped up today. Move backwards. Girl, write a quote. I want to share it. Move backwards. But it's real. It's true and it's honest. And I think there are too many resources that are telling us the opposite and saying, cover it up. Don't feel it. Maybe you just need to work harder. Maybe you just need to smile more. Maybe you just need to move faster, right? Maybe you just need to network more. Maybe you need more positive energy in your life. I think we probably all need more of a reality. First reality. Nothing good happens overnight. Right? And this is where that gets confusing, right? Because we never know how quickly we are going to be slingshot, right? But you're going to be building up to that moment before you probably even realize. I would have had no idea that the biggest part of this journey was learning the lesson that I did when I was coaching. And I remember the exact moment that it happened. I had the ball hit the ground and all the players are rushing to the middle of the state championship floor. And they're diving on their knees and it's the most beautiful moment and everybody's going crazy. And I just dropped to my knees myself in my own personal moment. And I remember being this is it. And then being this is it. And that moment was when the reality hit me that this may not have been something that I wanted, right? And while it was always a dream of mine, right? I remember setting that dream in 6th grade that I was going to win a state title, right? And think of how powerful that is to set that intention, to not take it laying down, to go find a way to be that person, period. To go find a way to rise up and find a way to do that regardless, right? And hey-o, God was like, hey, Naya, no, this isn't the path for you. And I was like, oh, I think you're wrong, but I appreciate the commentary. I hear you, but you're probably wrong. All those knee injuries were not trying to tell me to leave this arena. No. Awkward. They definitely were. Okay. Right? But that was my ego. I didn't say that. And I think this is what's most important, period. You have to start listening to yourself and the things that you want and trusting that. And then going with it. You won't be misled. And yesterday I had another realization. I know, this crazy thing that happens when you start to listen to yourself. I have this realization that I am probably in situations that I don't feel called back to. I'm probably being protected from something, right? That's not meant for me, or a direction that I'm not supposed to go. And I think if we can get in tune with that reality, and I know that our ego distracts us, and I want you to start using ego not in the negative connotation that it comes in, right? Because I said that to my friend yesterday, and she's like, whoa, I wouldn't say that. And I'm like, oh, ego isn't offensive. Ego is essentially directive, right? Like, I don't find offense with the term ego, and I think it's important that we start, right, utilizing it as a navigation tool versus something that we find derogatory or negative, because ego really helps guide us. That's what it's there for. And, I'm looking at my ego wants to just like pass me by that and be like, no, we have arrived. Hello, look at me. And sometimes I allow that to cover my own intuition, right? And a lot of times that's what we do. That's human nature, period. And that's what I did in my volleyball situation. Like, I was trying, God, spirit, whoever, was like trying to stop me. Girl, stop. Please stop. What else do we have to do to you for you to get this, right? And then as soon as I got that first opportunity to get it done, spirits were just like, we're about to slingshot this girl all the way past anything she could have ever imagined. And it absolutely played out like that. Like, within 3 years, I was in venues that I could have never even dreamt of being in, getting hugs from people that I had looked up to my entire life. Like, what? Right? Don't question that slingshot. And sometimes that slingshot is meant to propel you there so you get past that moment. Huh? Hey? Right? And so often we're just looking at that pullback moment and we're just like denouncing it. Dang you, pull back. I do not want another flat tire. I do not want another, negative review. I do not want another whatever. But start paying attention to what's happening in those moments. Why are you being pulled back? What lessons are being taught to you that are reoccurring, right? Because you might just be getting tested. And if you pass this time, bing! You're about to shoot off, girl. You're about to get everywhere that you wanted to go, right? Start looking at those as just tests. They're chances for you to show up different, for you to exhibit and show your growth. You're being pulled back. There's a reason. There's a growth. There's a moment of acceleration that you could have never saw coming. But can you pass this test? As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world.